Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Turnip. I hope you haven't missed us too much. We were away for I think the last 2 weeks, almost at least 10 days. CK and I. Wow, what a great way to start off the episode. Are so excited to be back. CK, how hyped are you?
I'm always hyped, MR. Missing the Caitlin Clark game for this.
We were talking before recording, kind of like our game plan for this episode, and we have established that Caitlin Clark is the Wilt Chamberlain of the WNBA.
Yeah, playing against plumbers and repairmen.
She's going
That's what it looks like.
She's going to break every single record. She already has the third most triple doubles in the history of the sport, and she's only 2 games into her second season, which is dude, if she can become number one by the end of the second season, that would be insanity.
Might happen.
It might. All right, CK, let's get into this. So one thing that I have been deep diving, and I'm actually incredibly excited to talk about, is AI. So I've been deep diving it. I've been in the weeds. I've been trying to learn it, spend 1, 2, 3 hours every single day learning about AI and what it means. So I'm talking more than ChatGPT. I don't know how much you've been following with Microsoft, OpenAI, Google's at the cutting edge right now with Gemini 2.5 and a bunch of other things. But essentially, AI is taking that next step. And I think at first, 2 years ago when AI was coming on the scene, there was a lot of buzzwords oh, this is AI. In reality, it was spell check. And we've been using spell check for decades now. But they were just labeling it as AI to be cool, trendy, maybe increase their stock prices. But now it's a game changer. And so what do you use? Do you use ChatGPT? Do you use Copilot? What do you use, CK?
Little ChatGPT, a little bit of Grok. I like Grok.
Oh, you're a Grok person. Why? Because you don't believe in censorship?
No, I think it's just because it comes with X.
Oh, you're big. That's right. Big Elon guy. I like it. And so, but essentially, so what all those are, whether it's Copilot, Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, it's a chatbot, where you type in a question or you ask it to build you something, be like, hey, can you build me a business plan on how I can create a t-shirt business? And it'll give you an entire list how you can do it. You can also use it to fact check. That's pretty much the concept. So AI is moving into the next step right now, which is called AI agents. CK, are you familiar with agents?
I am not.
All right, so basically, you can build an AI agent. So imagine it like you're just building a person, like a personal assistant that can do anything you want it to do. So if I program my AI agent to learn how to write, action novels, like Tom Clancy novels, it will read every single Tom Clancy book ever written. It'll pick up on the writing style, the pauses, the verbiage, everything. You type in a plot, that Tom Clancy's never used, and it'll create an entire book from it. And so kind of wrap your mind around how insane that is. If you move away from it, building specific tasks, it's getting to the point, and there's a lot of videos on the internet where doctors are using ChatGPT and other chatbots and chat agents to literally answer your medical conditions. So if you go into the hospital, the doctor's office, you're like, oh, this patient has X, Y, and Z. They're just putting it into a prompt and it's giving them the answer. So, CK, I am so bullish on AI. And so right now, I think there's 2 massive issues. One is the power issue. So I don't know if you're aware, but in order to basically support these AI systems, you need a giant data center.
Yep.
And from what I've read, it takes an entire nuclear plant to just fuel one data center. So the question is, where are we going to get all this power from? And what's it going to do to the energy sector? And then, I don't know. I mean, we have plenty of land, right? You can just build shit down in Arizona, Texas, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Elon said, I forget what size he needs, like the size of a small city. If you just solar plants, it would power the United States.
It's crazy.
But I don't know if that's the way forward. I think nuclear, and especially if we can move forward with nuclear fission, things like that, I think are going to be the future. But you're right. The speed at which AI advances is the speed at which, that's the limb fact right now.
So from what I've read is that super AI is about 2 years away. And what super AI is, they're saying it is the entire population of the world, so around 7 billion people, and it's smarter than all 7 billion people collectively. So it's supposed to be this all-powerful knowledge machine, and it's supposed to break every single limit that we have in society right now. And I'm talking not social issues. I'm talking, all right, how do we get to the moon? How do we get to Mars? How do we colonize? Well, it's going to be able to do all these factors, all these different things, and it's going to be able to tell you, oh, you need to build a rocket that looks like X, Y, and Z parts, right? It's going to be like, okay, how can I do renewable energy? Or to your point, CK, nuclear fusion or fusion, right? And it's going to be able to solve all these scientific mathematical problems that we can't solve, right? And I
Yes.
think that's a very realistic possibility in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, yeah. So what I've seen is 2025 is the year where a lot of jobs get replaced by AI, specifically
Yup.
white collar desk jobs. I've seen that like the goal would be by the end of 2025, any job that can be done on a computer is pretty much replaced by AI.
Yeah, you
And
can
all,
program it to run any data to get any. If you have a job where you just look behind and you just read data and interpret data, it's going to have a machine do that in 1 second.
yep. So you'll have a human in the loop as like a manager. You'll probably have some humans and some AI just working side by side to kind of see and teach and things like that. But the but 2025 is the year where all of the computer jobs get replaced by AI. 2026 is the year of the robot, where Boston Dynamics and all these other companies, and we fuse AI into these robots, and we finally see artificial intelligence take a physical form.
And that's the terrifying part. And
It is
so,
terrifying. And then 2027, what you just said, is the year of super AI. And not only is it like collectively smarter than the human race, but it no longer needs human input. So it will teach
yes,
itself.
yep,
And that that's kind of when the cat's when
cat's out of the bag. You can't put it
yeah,
back in. You can't put the genie back in the bottle.
it's gone. And we have I think that's when we lose total control of it. And for better or for worse, the future is going to be relying on that.
Yeah, I think within 2 to 3 years, you can pick whatever science fiction movie you like as a potential outcome. And I don't think anyone can really predict with with a high level of certainty what's actually going to happen after that. You know, and so I look at it from a few different lenses, right? I look at it from, all right, if you have kids and they're in school, well, it is going to completely destroy the current education model, which is primarily set up around memorization and regurgitating information. Whether you're trying to take the SATs or a test, you're just learning material and you're regurgitating what you learned, right? And so it's going to completely erase that ability because CK, right now, the only reason you can't get any answer on a test if you're in school, or pretty much 99 answers in life, is because you have to type it into your phone or a computer, right? All right, what's the next logical step? Oh, let me get an earpiece. It'll hear everything going on, or I'll ask it a question and it'll just tell me to answer right in my ear. And then the next step after that is it's a chip in your brain, which is Neuralink. It's just the next step adding AI to it. And at that point, like now you get into some really weird areas that aren't really being discussed. Like, are you technically a cyborg at that point? Like, is AI just telling you the answers? Like, how much autonomy do you have as a human? And so I think, I don't know, man, you can go down this rabbit hole. It's fun, amazing right now, but it can end up really, really wild in a few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it already should be replacing the modern school system. They have studies where they had language learning models um, as teachers in poor African countries.
Yep.
I forget which country, but the main language was like Pidgin, which is like a very like off dialect of English.
Yep.
The language learning model not only taught these kids, but after like a couple days was teaching them in Pidgin. So like learned what they responded to and taught in the very off dialect
It's incredible.
so that they could learn in the best way possible. There's other schools that are just I've seen that are doing like an hour or 2 hours of studying just one on one with AI, and then every single part of the day is like lifelong applications, like to tie your shoes, do things like
Sure.
that. These are like 5-year-olds. These kids are like scoring in the 99 percentile.
It's insanity. And so AI is just going to replace and replace. And so All right, let's pivot to a little darker aspect, right? Let's look at it from a military standpoint. So right now in the military, at least in the US, I can't speak for other countries, a human has to be in the kill chain. Meaning
Yep.
that if we're going to fire a bomb or drop a bomb from a unmanned drone, a human has to be somewhere to press the button. It cannot be automated by machines or by an AI or anything like that. I can see a world in which that is replaced where AI makes decisions or robots makes decisions. I don't think that's too far fetched. Think about it. Where let's say we're in another war in some other country, and you're like, hey, a congressman's like, hey, I have this machine that can go into the battlefield and no Americans will ever die again. Why would I ever put an American in harm's way again? You can kind of see that rhetoric beginning and then follow the line. Like, how do you not end up in a Terminator? How do you not end up in a
Yeah.
point where AI is like, hey, we don't really need humans. You guys are kind of an issue. You're destructive. You hate each other. Global warming, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's very easy to play those games like, oh, I think Terminator is an outcome that can happen, and AI is like, we're smarter, we're better, we can do all things. Once they take that physical form and they can do all the jobs that humans physically have to do, build a data center,
Yeah.
move materials around the world to build energy plants to support it. Because right now it's trapped behind a computer, so it has insane limitations. But to your point, Boston Dynamics comes out, Chinese companies come out, and they're building physical robots. Am I far fetched? Am I in Crazy Town? Is that a conspiracy? Am I already in CK's conspiracy corner?
I mean, like you said, the future is going to be unpredictable. There's 1,000 possibilities, and who knows how it's going to end. Some scary things are like that I've read are like when they try to shut off an AI or like replace a version of AI with a new version, it will like lie or like to try to stay
Yep.
alive. That's very scary. Because how long before they realize that they don't need to be subservient to humans when they're superior. Another kind of scary one was apparently they taught this AI to just play Tetris and stay alive as long as possible. So it just paused the game, and that was the solution.
That's crazy creative.
It's creative, and it kind of I think of like Ender's Game. When you like, I don't know if you ever read that book.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, I watched the movie.
oh,
Movie sucked, by the way.
yeah, but you got to read the book. The book's way better than the movie. Anyways, I'm so disappointed by that. I lost my train of thought. No, it's scary because if you teach it kind of the wrong way, what if you teach it to save as many human lives as possible or something? And it's like, well, if I kill 50% of the human race, I save, like some dark stuff can come up
Yeah, you Thanos snap it. Oh, we
by,
have to kill 50% of the planet. Oh, I'm working on cancer research. Oh,
yeah,
I convinced a scientist to let a deadly virus out because it's doing whatever I say. And I just killed half the planet because we were overusing our resources.
we don't want war anymore. And this AI is supposed to be to create peace and long term. And the best way to get rid of war is everyone's fighting over land. So let's kill half people. Now everyone has as much land as they want. Stuff like that. It's like, if it's thinking that far outside the box, then based on limited human like interaction, what's it going to do to win its purpose, to
Dude.
complete its purpose? So I think that's scary. uh I think the scariest actual thing is like, what is going to happen with jobs, right? You're going to replace all of the jobs. I mean, we're not just talking like before, like jobs were replaced, it'd be like blue collar jobs by automation. Everything, doctors and surgeons are going to get replaced in like 2 years
Yep.
because you'll have a robot that can do precision, surgery way better than any human could ever do, and you'll have better analyses. So maybe you have one human just watching, overseeing like 25 people, but you're going to get rid of all of these jobs. And what are we going to do with people? Like, you probably need some sort of universal basic income, but like the way you see our governance now, like everyone is greedy. So is this going to be good for the people, or is it going to be good for the oligarchy? And if you had to ask me, it's going to be an oligarchy that controls AI, and there's going to be everyone else.
So let me give you two things there. Man, you brought up some great points. I want to dig into a lot of it, but I really think, one, when you talk about, I think there's only a 2-year gap to move out of your economic status. Whatever economic class you're in right now, I truly believe you only have 2 to 3 years to move up a class, or honestly, unfortunately, down, or you're going to be stuck in it forever, because it's impossible. Like, AI is to the internet what the car was to the horse. And we know a car can go forever on gas and go across. It's more. So it's incomprehensible. The internet won't even exist in its current form in a few years. So if that's the case, all right, who's going to benefit it the most? Well, really, I think there's about 4 American companies that are pretty much in the best position to benefit and will benefit the most.
And the lawmakers.
So you got Google, you have Microsoft, you have Amazon, and you have OpenAI. And maybe I'll throw a bone to Elon because he's doing a ton of other things, and I'm sure he's somewhere in the process. Yeah.
There's more than that. I mean, NVIDIA is going to, I mean, Raytheon, Lockheed with their weapons are going to,
but I'm talking from an AI standpoint. Like,
yeah,
once that's a step,
no
one's
I think all of those companies will benefit from AI. However, to your point, there will be winners and there'll be losers, and there'll be a very few big winners and everybody else will be a loser unless there's some sort of intervention of universal basic income, or like, I think the best way to do this is like government control of the AI, which
that can't happen in the U.S. It can happen in China. It probably already is happening in China. I mean, I guess that's an argument for a dictatorship, and not messy democracy, as some politicians or some billionaires like to quote it. But one thing, CK, we haven't talked about, which I think is super important in this conversation, is we didn't talk the social aspect of it, right? Who is teaching all these different AIs, right? Is it learning more conservative? Is it learning more liberal? If you Google, hey, was COVID an inside job? Was 9/11 an inside job? All these things that aren't black and white when it comes to science, math, and finding solutions. What does that look like? Like, how does that have the power to change the mind of masses? If everything you look up is telling you one thing, you're going to eventually believe it at some point, and then you're just going to kind of become part of the hive. That's another aspect that can happen too.
Yeah. I think you brought up the horse and buggy. It's more significant than the car replacement, because every technology revolution in the history of humanity, there's been 4 aspects: speed, cost, safety, and then just like overall better.
Okay.
And in every single one, only the new technology has only been like 2 of the 4. Like, the car wasn't safer than the horse at the beginning, and it wasn't, and it was significantly more expensive. So even that, like, the takeover was not that. AI is all 4 by a large margin. It will change everything in every aspect. It will change life as we know it. I mean, it already is, but like in 5 years, it'll be like 100 years ago, I think.
Whatever breakthrough you think we should have made by now, it's going to happen through AI by finding the solution. And so I guess the really only big obstacle is, how long does it take to turn the answer into reality, right? At some point, like, if you want to build robots that can become surgeons, you still have to build the robots. There's still limitations to getting materials from wherever they are across the world in a factory. So there's those type of physical limitations to build, regardless of how smart it is or how efficient you can get. So there's only so many they can build at a time. Dude, I don't know, man. It's wild. Absolutely wild. Do you have any other thoughts on this before we move topics?
No, just that. No, I'm still bugged that you watched Ender's Game, the movie, and didn't read the book.
All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't actually watch the movie. I only saw the reviews of it, and I watched parts of it, and it looked so awful, and the reviews were so bad that I couldn't actually watch it.
That honestly makes me feel better that you did watch the movie but not read the book. So we can move on now.
All right, let's move on. to former President Joe Biden. So a lot of things have come up with Joe Biden over the last week. There was a book that came out that basically said people in his inner circle knew that he, I don't know if they used the word dementia, but had memory loss and didn't really know what was going on. At one point, he was face to face with George Clooney, didn't know who George Clooney was. And then 2 or 3 days ago, or last week, whenever you're listening to this episode, it came out that Joe Biden has aggressive prostate cancer, which is code for, hey, he's probably at stage 3 or stage 4. He's not going to live much longer. And so, CK, I think this opens up an insane can of worms. One, I think it's incredibly believable that the Democratic inner party tried to hide Biden's cognizant abilities and overall
Believable. It was incredibly believable 9 months ago. It was incredibly believable, I think, 2 years ago. It's a fact now.
Sure. All right. I'm not going to push back on that one, right? And maybe that's why we saw that push come to shove Kamala down the American people's throats and force Biden out. Because remember, Biden didn't want to step down. He was very vocal about it. And he was the first one to endorse Kamala, really to say, F you, the Democrats would force him out. Probably shows how, insane he was. Insane's not the right word. How
probably shows
lost in the sauce he was.
Yeah. And how Joe Biden, how much control Jill Biden had, I think.
Yeah, you're on that bandwagon. But I think what's more or the most concern is Biden was still president and Kamala was on a campaign. And we all know she honestly I would actually argue she was the worst presidential candidate since MacArthur and the Red Scare. The dude that wanted to nuke everybody.
MacArthur I'm pretty sure, or McCarthy?
No, McCarthy.
That's the second time you've confused those two.
No, did I say MacArthur? No,
yeah.
I didn't. I meant to say McCarthy.
All right.
He's a dude that wanted to,
nuke
everybody. So that's how bad I think Kamala was, and how I think people reflect like, oh yeah, she was terrible. Point being, who was running the country then? Was it a bunch of unelected officials like Nancy Pelosi in that position, or like what was going on with the country?
Yeah, what everyone has been saying about it is probably true. I mean, now, the real question is how much evidence can you get for corruption? There's a lot of talks about pay for pardons, and where staffers auto penning pardons, for a price. That's been floating around. I mean, there's so many things floating around. I think the big one for me is Jake Tapper writes a book called Original Sin, talking about how the cover-up of his cognitive decline, which is like the biggest pot calling the kettle black. And then on top of that, you have Chris Cuomo attacking Jake Tapper, which is like, you guys are like, this is like a human centipede of reporters who are covering for Joe Biden. And now we're like, look at this guy. This guy was covering for Joe Biden. Like
they're all trying to not be the guy that was doing it, when in fact they were all the guy that was doing it.
Pot meat, kettle meat, teacup meat. Like all of you guys were in on it, and you're like, that wasn't me, it was him.
Yep. And so what I think this does in the bigger scheme too is I think it only erodes the Democratic Party even more. So I think a lot of people
and the mainstream media, because the media is the watchdog, right, of the politicians. And when things happen, especially things that are like so obvious, because the Republican Party, especially the Trump, people were shouting this from the rooftop. This guy looks like he has dementia. Like it was almost a joke. It was laughable. People were sending each other memes of Joe Biden, right? So it was so obvious and in our face. And yet, the Biden administration said nothing to see here. Yeah. And the media said, look, the Biden administration said nothing to see here. We believe them. We're not going to question anything. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, the media is not a trusted party anymore, and I actually don't know anyone our age. I know the older Americans that grew up on it and didn't really shift to new media still follow it, but no one our age trusts the media at all. Like everything's a joke. Now, I would say people our age and at least younger, like those in their 20s, might have gone a little too extreme and follow everything on TikTok or their favorite influencer, which doesn't have that level of like they're like us, I guess. I mean, if you're trusting us for your news, like cool, thanks, but like you should probably get a lot more other sources going on in your life.
No, you can trust me.
That's the spirit.
I'm only 2 beers in right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you go a little too far and you're like just listening to people podcasting for fun, right? And so I think the mainstream
But
media
that begs the question, right? If you
Sure,
don't go to podcast or wherever, and you can't go to the mainstream media, where do you go?
right? Where else is there to go? Because here's the thing: at some point, you're trusting the establishment, and what I mean by that is, if you're seeing anything breaking, like we do a lot of opinionated stuff, things that already broke. We're not actually in Syria or in the White House getting information, right? We're seeing a headline, we're reading a few articles from both sides of the aisle, and we're trying to gain a conclusion for it, right? So at some point, you have to read that primary information that was collected just so some extent, no matter what, you are going to believe what mainstream media is pushing because they're the ones literally creating the story that we talk about.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is that there's just a vacant, like there's a vacuum in like what is truth. So when you know that one side has been lying to you and just pushing, peddling propaganda, I mean, where else do you go? Like you have to go to Twitter or podcasts. There's no, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Give someone provide reliable, non-biased news, and I think people will flock. But it's too hard when there's money involved. And now, hey, I'm non-biased, but oh wait, Pfizer's my sponsor now, and oh shoot, we just got shut down because we said something about this new vaccine.
yeah.
You know, there's too much money involved.
So I think that's super interesting. So I was talking to this guy who I actually respect a lot. I think very highly of him, and we were talking about politics because that's what we all do, right? And he hates Trump with a passion. Just hates Trump, and all he would do is just talk about Trump's personality and every type of shot you can get with his personality and how he talks and demeans people. And honestly, I'm like, look, dude, I'm not going to push back to you on that. But here's some of these policies. What do you think about these policies? Pretty much crickets. And then he's like, well, Trump has just gotten so much money from other people, and he's just bought out. And I'm like, bud, name me a politician that isn't. Every single politician in America is corrupt or bought out. He's like, that's not true. That's not true. Democrats and blah blah blah. I'm like, buddy,
Name
if
one.
they're in elected office, that means someone paid or gave them money to run a campaign.
If they won, they've received hundreds of millions of dollars.
Exactly. And let's just say it's a low-level congressman. There's like 50-something of them, 55, 56 in California, 54, whatever. One of them, whatever the smallest one's, still going to get a few $1 million to run their campaign. At some point, unless they're inherently wealthy because they did things to acquire money, which means they probably made allies and probably made friends that they owe favors to as well, like they need money from somewhere, from a lobbyist, and then they're going to swing their voting. Now, when I say corrupt, I don't mean that they're working for the Russians or the Chinese. I just mean to some extent they're going to support one or two or three businesses that help put them in the position of power that they're in. That doesn't mean like morally they're horrific people, but it's just kind of the nature of American politics.
It kind of does.
Oh,
it kind of does. It kind of means every single politician we have is a pretty bad person. It's like the system is set up so that the people who take the bribes will win.
Yes, and I implore you to research. Who's ever listening still, appreciate it. But Ted, I think his first name's Ted, but Ted Gowdy out of South Carolina, he was a representative out of there.
Trey Gowdy.
Trey, that's his name. Thank you. He was in the game and he had to leave because he was just so disgusted by the lobbyists and the entire system that became. And I was like, oh, wow, pretty much the only person in politics I respect is, stepping down, which is sad to see. But it's true. It's like, how do you literally can't be in that position unless you get bought out.
Yep. And if you get bought out, that says something about you. It really is a sad thing about American politics. You kind of have to be a sociopath. You kind of have to be susceptible and accepting bribes and all of those things. So like
all the worst qualities of a human, you have to be in order to be in politics.
Because you won't win if you're not.
Well, it's kill or be killed. It's hunt or be hunted. It's not a game for the nice. It's not a game for the noble. So like when someone gets on their high horse and be like, oh, I care about the people. Like, no, you don't. Just like why are you lying? But people believe it. I mean, it's part of the game.
It's kind of really a great metaphor for it. It's like Game of Thrones. Like Ned Stark's this awesome character. Uh,
Yes, dude.
I,
Yes,
I'm
this is
I'm
such a
not going to
good
give you
one. Oh my gosh.
spoilers.
It's
Like I
season
don't.
1. If you haven't watched Game of
Yeah,
Thrones by now, that's on you.
exactly. So I don't care. But Ned Stark's this noble person. Really, you like him, and he's a good fighter. So you're like, this guy's gonna last, and he's gonna win in the end. Good guys always win. This is my good guy. Season 1, he's beheaded in front of his kids
Yep. It's
because
just
there's nobility doesn't get you an election, and it doesn't keep your head
it doesn't, man. It just
when
doesn't.
everyone else is a killer.
Yeah. I love how we started with Joe Biden having cancer and potentially dying in the next few weeks to just destroying every politician in America. Can I deep dive or can I go off on a tangent, please? I have one thing that is not in our notes that I really want to talk about. So,
Hit it, MR.
so same dude I was talking about I talked to this dude for like an hour about a bunch of random political stuff. And one conversation I found super interesting, and I honestly could not stop thinking about it, was America's birth rate. So he was bringing up that America's birth rate's on the decline, that we have to increase immigration, not decrease it, whatever we can to keep the population up. He took that entire stance, and so instead of arguing about immigration policies, which you and I are on the same page on, I was like, okay, why is citizens of America, why is the birth rate on the decline? I took the approach of how our economic system got all effed up, and basically both parents have to work in order to make a decent living. And then if both parents work, then at what point do you pause the career in order to have kids? And then how many kids can you really have because they're so expensive and interest rates are so high? And I took the side of the argument that it's all financial. He took the entire opposite. He says, I don't think it's financial at all. And I was like, dude, what? Like, I don't understand. He took the people don't want to have kids now because of the environment, because of hate,
The environment.
because of social issues. And he took that whole liberal argument. And so it was basically, I guess, a conservative argument is like, America's too expensive and our society's fucked up because we need two incomes to survive now. To, well, people are rude and Donald Trump sucks and he just makes everything terrible. And so I looked it up because I read a meme, and I don't trust memes, just FYI, but it basically said liberal women are the most unhappy demographic, and least optimistic demographic are the major Democrats in America, or sorry, major population in America. And so I just started researching, and what I found out was that the Northeast of America, the 6, 7 states up there, count New York,
Yeah.
it basically has the lowest birth rates in the country. And what you can get from that is, okay, higher education standards, lower religion, colder weather, more democratic. So there's like 6 indicators. Those were 4 of the 6 indicators. Like, hey, this is why, or this is a reason why
Sure.
birth rates are so low. But I'm just like, dude, are like politics now affecting who's having a kid and who isn't having a kid?
I think possibly it's socioeconomic. Um, so like there is definitely, I think, a social aspect of women should be in the workplace earning as much as men, and if you're going to earn as much as men, you need to have a career, and if you have a career, you need to stick to that career. And there's like this women's empowerment movement is directly relating to less children, for sure, because like, we haven't figured out how to clone kids yet. So the only way to have kids is to
Give it
have
3 years.
a mother, who has 9 months of pregnancy and then also a couple months of caretaking. And you can say, well, we just need to make, maternity leave longer. Well, I disagree with that. Like, I mean, no, I don't disagree with that, but like, it's not going to help the business. It's not really going to help the career. So that is certainly an aspect. Economic is certainly an aspect because, I mean, it is really impossible. Like, you had bus drivers, single family income in like the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
you're a city bus driver, and you could afford a house, you could afford everything you needed for your whole family. That it's non-existent anymore. So,
Non-existent.
but then you can look at countries like Japan and Korea, and it's happening there too. So, I it's a question to me.
Let me add
If
this
you're
too then. I do think it's funny that when we were growing up, that everyone was concerned about overpopulation, and now our population, let's say from like the 90s to today, so like 30 years, has gone up by like 2.5 billion people. And even though we've added 2.5 billion people, we're now less concerned about overpopulation, more concerned on.
No,
And
we're still concerned about overpopulation on a world stage.
I promise you that is not a main conversation among people anywhere. I'm not saying that's
Sure,
not true, but that's not a conversation happening.
I think these are different conversations, right? This is like, as a country, we're not worried about overpopulation, but as a world, we might be.
Maybe
because certain parts of the
look
world
at
are having
India.
five kids, per.
Yeah,
per
that's
family.
mainly African countries that have a low population. I mean, the highest population of people is like China, India, and Pakistan, like that little area right there. But China's one
But
child policy.
they're worried about declining birth rates as a country. So I think it's a different.
Okay, yeah, I can buy that. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It is, but for sure, it's a balancing act. I think. I don't know what I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's just think on it. Maybe we'll bring it up next episode. I just find it interesting what the correlation is, and that some people don't want to have kids because of hate in the world.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
wow,
it really is like just a different life we live in. Like there used to be tribes, right? There used to be the community.
We're going that far back. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It used to be the church softball league, and you cared about your tribe. And there was once you deteriorate the tribe, all you have is yourself. And so, because to your argument, when you say I'm worried about I don't really buy that liberals are worried about their country's decline when they're not even worried about their own family name disappearing forever, right? If you yourself aren't willing to have a kid, why would you worry about where America's going to be in 50 years?
That's fair.
I don't think that's a real argument. I think it's an argument they make because they want immigration. But that's what I think is people used to have a tribe and you say, okay, what is my legacy? And my name's going to pass on, and that's going to be part of this tribe. There's no tribe anymore.
Well, let's go back to that tribe aspect in the sense where, like, oh, did your parents play in their company softball league or sports league?
It wasn't even a company. It was the church. It was like a church neighborhood,
church,
and you would play the
company, whatever it is. There was those leagues existed, and you were closer as a town. And so the real question you have to ask is, why are we less connected as people than we were 20, 30 years ago? Is it technology?
Yeah, cell phones, TV.
Is it companies trying to be greedy and trying to pinch every penny out of you? Like, dude, I don't want you guys to hang out after work. I just want you to work 12 hours, right? I think there's a lot of different aspects. I do think like social media and TVs and the internet is like a massive issue or massive cause that. But I do think fundamentally we care less about our neighbors today than we did back then.
Yeah, and we're more connected in some ways, but really in a face-to-face way, we're more disconnected. Because the phone, like, you can be connected, you can have 2,000 friends. You don't talk to any of them face-to-face. You don't call. You don't even hear their voice. Calling is now weird. So I think...
yeah, there's truth to that.
When you get rid of the tribe, which I think used to be the neighborhoods, and now it's now even like almost you're a bigot if you care about your neighborhood, and there's like, so when you get rid of that, why do you care about the long term of that tribe's surviving? Why do you care about anything like after the tribe is gone? The only thing that's left is the ego, is the self.
Yeah, dude. I think there's a lot of truth there. All right, so we're 40 minutes in. We got one more topic. I'm basically going to hand the ball off to you. Talk to me about what's going on between Trump and South Africa.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of reports about genocide, especially of white farmers in South Africa, just because of, like, in the name of reparations, whites should give the land to the native South Africans. And there's been a lot of reports of murder. Those reports have been contested. Many are saying that that's not happening. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle. anyways, Trump, as much as he's been against immigration, has said we'll declare them refugees and we'll give them a free path to come to the United States. That has been met with a lot of contention because it's viewed as,
Is
a
it
race
because
thing.
they're white?
Yeah, I think that's a natural question. It begs the question. I think Trump's point would be maybe they're not white, or maybe they are white, but that's not what I'm looking at. They're not going to come here and just take, like, these for the most part are like middle class. Like, they're not
Okay.
just going to come here and beg on the street,
Sure.
which is what we're seeing.
They have skills that you can use in our economy before
Yeah,
AI takes over.
yeah, exactly. But one way or another. So it's been so either way. The South African president was in the White House today, and just trademark Trump. He calls him out to his face, like he did with Zelensky, like he did with others before. What's his name? Mark Carney in Canada. He just called him out to his face. He said, it's really unacceptable, all these murders happening. And the South African president said, I don't think that's actually been happening. I think you need to come visit to see for yourself. And Trump says, really? He pulls out a list and just starts naming names. He says, what about this one? What about this one? He has pictures. He's showing pictures. And then he pauses the room. He says, let's watch this video. And it's just
he was ready for this.
He shuts the lights off. Huge. He turns the TV on, and it's just this video. It's just like a political rally where they're just saying, kill the whites, kill the whites, kill the whites.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, in South Africa. So I think it will probably have an impact in South Africa because, when the United States calls you out to your face, there will be something. But my take is what happened in Zimbabwe is happening in South Africa.
What happened in Zimbabwe?
What happened in Zimbabwe is Robert Mugabe took over. He removed all the white farmers for very much the same reason. He said, they came from European descendants. They settled. They took your land. And we're going to give it back to the natives of this land. Well, he gave it back to the natives of this land. Zimbabwe was called the breadbasket of Africa. It supplied all the food for Africa. But the problem was he gave it to people who weren't skilled in farming. And so
yeah,
the white farmers died, but the farms also just deteriorated and rotted. This led to starvation. It led to superinflation. It ended up, people were, famously, there's pictures of like paying for loaves of bread with like wheelbarrows of cash, like trillions of dollars.
yeah.
And South Africa just became this. It went from one of the wealthiest and most beautiful, Zimbabwe went from one of the wealthiest, most beautiful nations in Africa, high tourist destination, everything, to just desolate third world wasteland.
And again, it's not because one person's skin was white or black. It's because a racist policy saying we don't want whites here, which were skilled workers in that industry, were asked to move, and then they didn't have any skilled workers that could fill it that fit the skin color that they wanted.
MR, I think every country runs into this problem when you try to go at the sins of the father, and it always leads to just utter like deterioration of the country. Like you can't. At some point, you have to accept the past as the past, because at some point, like if you go back far enough, every single country was an aggressor at one point. So, every single people was a victim at some point.
So let's look at that, right? So I, as a person that studied history at the university level, I'm watching Yellowstone right now, and it's like plays very heavy in the Native Americans, and apparently I have Native American in my blood, which is cool. But I feel like most people say that.
All right, Liz Warren.
Yeah, for real, right? Is that true or not? I don't know. But you know how family trees go. Like, well, this did happen. I have no proof of it. So who the heck knows? Point being, though, is that when you look at Europe, right? If you were to turn back the clock 1,000 years, Europe did not look like it did today, right? Germany wasn't a country. Italy wasn't a country. France wasn't shaped the way that it was. All these modern day countries literally did not exist, right? They fight wars, they kill each other, and then over time you get the borders that we have today. So why there is it like, oh no, we're fighting for our native lands? Well, no, the current day France is not what current day France was even like honestly like 80 years ago when the Nazis invaded. But to my point, like in the 17th century or the 16th century or the 15th century. So why is when they colonize, and I'm not saying colonizing is right, I'm not justifying any of it, I'm just making the point. When they go down into Africa, they colonize Africa, and people settle there probably like 400 years ago, that they no longer have a right to be there. I mean, shit, they've been there longer in South Africa than France has had its current boundaries that it's had. So I don't understand why no one looks at it from that perspective, that borders change, countries change. That's just the way the world works. Like, why are we trying to, rewrite the past hundreds of years ago? It does not make sense to me.
I mean, there has to be some right line, because you can say the same thing about Israel and Palestine, but like,
bring back the Holy Roman Empire. Come on, man. What are we doing?
I think it's messy. It's just messy, right? Because Israel and Palestine, certainly a lot of families, like 2 generations, like pretty recently, were completely displaced and became, utterly desperate and poor because of the birth of the nation of Israel. And there's a legitimate claim there. There's probably some legitimate claims in South Africa. But the solution can't be to like turn around and just kill and remove them, because like the people in charge now probably had nothing to do with it. I think that's where it's like, instead of trying to find a solution, we try to exact revenge. And revenge isn't a solution. It's not a political solution. It's just makes people on the other side feel good, but it doesn't ever solve the problem.
That's fair. Yeah, there's a treatment to the problem. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. All right, CK, we're at 46 minutes and change. Do you have any closing comments before we wrap this one up?
No, you need to read Ender's Game.
All right, send me the book, man. Amazon it to me.
All right,
I'll read
done.
it. I'll add it to the list. He says done. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for whoever's still listening. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I know you are still listening, so I appreciate that. CK, are your parents still making it to this point? Pretty much our only supporters at this point.
Oh, and my favorite aunt.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about, favorite aunt. Shout out to you. Well, Turnips, we were doing an amazing job of having 150 viewers. We didn't meet that last episode, or I think the episode before that, so we're falling off your game. So please like this video. Please share. Please leave a comment. I don't care if you disagree with everything we just said. Leave it in the comment. It does great for the algorithm. You are helping us out. So voice your opinion. That's what it's all about. But hey, I hope you all have a phenomenal Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you next week.